Welcome back to the series Broken, the Black Dahlia Murder. I'm Esther, and this is part 5. This week, we'll examine one of the most disturbing crime scenes in American history. We'll walk through the discovery of Elizabeth Short's body, what the autopsy revealed about how she was killed, and why investigators quickly found themselves facing a case that should have been solvable, but slipped through their fingers. Before we dive in, don't forget, this is just a taste of this week's case. You can hear the full story, every detail, and every twist on the Once Upon a Crime podcast. Subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. Get all the links on our website, truecrimepodcast.com. It was 11 a.m. on January 15, 1947, when two LAPD patrol officers responded to a 390, a report of a drunken person lying in a vacant lot on Norton Avenue. What they found instead was the body of a young woman, posed carefully among the dirt and weeds. At first, they thought it was a mannequin. It wasn't. Elizabeth Short had been cut cleanly in half at the waist. The two sections of her body were placed about a foot apart. Her arms were raised over her head. Her legs were spread. Her face had been beaten, and a deep slash extended from the corners of her mouth toward both ears. Contrary to later myths, the crime scene was quickly secured. Early photographs showed that the body had been washed clean. There was almost no blood. Investigators realized immediately she had been killed elsewhere. Near the body, detectives found a tire track, a small smear of blood, and an empty sack. A witness later reported seeing a dark Ford sedan parked near the lot between 6:30 and 7 that morning. The killer had placed the body there deliberately, fully visible from the sidewalk. Before we continue, a brief warning. The next section contains descriptions of the medical examiner's findings. While we'll avoid unnecessary detail, some of what follows is disturbing. Dr. Frederick Newbar autopsied the victim at the Los Angeles County morgue. Her fingerprints were taken and sent to the FBI using newspaper wire photo technology, a process that allowed her to be identified the next day. The autopsy revealed several critical findings. First, she had been strangled. There were rope burns on her neck, wrists, and forearms. She had also been beaten over the head with a blunt instrument, causing a concussion. The bisection of the body occurred after death. It had been done with surgical precision, cutting cleanly between the vertebrae, a technique requiring anatomical knowledge. Dr. Newbar believed the killer placed her body in a semi-reclined position, possibly in a bathtub, during the dissection. Bristles from a scrub brush were found inside the wounds, indicating the killer washed the body meticulously. Some injuries were inflicted while she was alive, including the deep slashes to her face. Many others occurred after death. One particularly disturbing detail, a piece of flesh removed from her thigh, containing her rose tattoo, was later found inserted inside her body. The medical examiner estimated the killer spent hours with the body before carefully posing it in the vacant lot. The fingerprints transmitted to the FBI resulted in a match from a 1943 arrest. The victim was identified as Elizabeth Short of Medford, Massachusetts. A reporter from the Los Angeles Examiner called her mother, Phoebe Short, pretending Elizabeth had won a beauty contest, only to switch abruptly and inform her she had been murdered. Phoebe was later asked to travel to California to identify the body. Meanwhile, reporters swarmed Los Angeles, interviewing anyone who had ever met Elizabeth Short. From this frantic rush came the birth of the Black Dahlia persona, a sensationalized, often fictional version of Elizabeth, created by the newspapers. They portrayed her as a seductress, a mystery woman in sheer black clothing, surrounded by gangsters and sinister men. In reality, she often wore bright colors and was described by friends as shy, hopeful, and romantic. But the myth sold newspapers. and it obscured the real young woman at the center of this brutal crime. Detectives interviewed hundreds of witnesses and dozens of potential suspects. One by one, each was cleared. The LAPD brought in police psychiatrist Dr. J. Paul DeRiver, who quickly labeled the murder a lust killing committed by a sadistic psychopath. He offered theories, one involving a supposed lesbian love triangle that had no basis in evidence. His involvement pushed the investigation in unproductive directions. As tips poured in, the public grew fearful. Newspapers speculated that Los Angeles faced a new Jack the Ripper. Other unsolved murders, women strangled or mutilated, were compared to the Dahlia case. Detectives found no links. Despite enormous efforts, investigators were left with nothing: no murder scene, no weapon, and no suspect capable of the precise bisection of the body. To understand why the case stalled, we have to step back and consider the environment of 1947. In the months surrounding Elizabeth's death, Los Angeles saw a record spike in homicides, nearly 200 between late 1946 and early 1947. It's possible that the surge stemmed from the challenges facing returned servicemen: trauma from war, difficulty adjusting to civilian life, unemployment, and frustration when promised benefits, like the GI Bill, failed to materialize as expected. At the same time, women's roles were changing. During the war, women worked, lived independently, and navigated cities on their own. After the war, some men felt threatened by that independence, and some reacted with anger or violence. Elizabeth Short, young, alone, and transient, was one of the many women in that era simply trying to build a life on their own terms. Instead of blaming her choices, we must understand the world she was living in, one where predators could easily blend in, and where violence against women was rising. By the spring of 1947, the Dahlia investigation had stalled completely. The case faded from active pursuit and moved toward becoming one of the most infamous unsolved murders in American history. Elizabeth Short was laid to rest on January 25, 1947, at Mountain View Cemetery in Oakland, California. Only her mother, her sister Virginia, and Virginia's husband were present. Reporters watched from a distance. Elizabeth's mother rarely spoke of her daughter afterward. The grief was too great, but she kept her photographs close, remembering Beth as her sweet, protective, and gentle middle child. In the final episode of Broken, we'll examine two of the most controversial theories surrounding Elizabeth Short's murder. We'll look at the Black Dahlia Avenger letters, messages sent to newspapers and police by someone claiming to be the killer. Were they genuine or a hoax? Then we'll explore the later allegations by former LAPD homicide detective Steve Hodel, who believed his father, Dr. George Hodel, was the murderer. We'll evaluate those claims and the evidence behind them. And finally, I'll share my own thoughts on who killed Elizabeth Short and why. The conclusion of this series is coming next.